There are 1 million amputees in the United States. There are 50,000 new amputees every year, and that number is growing.
There is life after amputation.
Even though my legs are gone, I'm enjoying my life.
I always felt that I was going to walk again.
You shouldn't give up because you're going to be able to do more than what you think you can do.
It's not nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be.
I look at the amputation as almost like a gift if I can help someone else that's going through what I went through.
I think that a person shouldn't be afraid of an amputation.
There's life after amputation, and I could get back to doing a lot more of what I used to be able to do.
I think it's nice that we're finally going to have our own video because we have some unique people in our support group, and I think it's always good to hear from a diverse group of people explaining where they have been, what has happened to them, and how they're going on with their lives right now. That can never do any harm. It can always be very helpful.
My name is Larry Wiedmeyer. I'm 60 years old, and I lost my right leg below the knee almost 4 years ago due to diabetes.
My name is Jessie B. Campbell. I'm 74 years old. I have had sugar diabetes, I'll say over 20 years. The first leg I lost above my knee, I lost it January 2002. And the one below the knee, I lost July of the same year.
I'm Louise Allen. I'm 84, and I had diabetes, and sores wouldn't heal on my foot, and they decided amputation was the way to go. That was 3 years ago. It's my left leg, and it's below the knee.
Jean Lovez. I'm 67 years old, and I lost my leg approximately a year and a half ago, and it started from a fall that just a simple fall, breaking the ankle, and the ankle through several surgeries, it never really healed.
My name is Tina Baker, and I lost my leg in 1995 due to a car accident. My birthday is August. I was born in 1938, so that makes me 66. I'm a BK, which means I'm a below the knee amputation.
I'm Dave Ramirez, and well, it was 4 years ago that Wendy and I were riding the same motorcycle, and we were involved in a pretty serious motorcycle accident. Consequently, as a result of that accident, both Wendy and I suffered some serious injury, and which included the loss of our lower right leg, so we're both right BKAs.
I'm Wendy Ramirez, Dave's wife, and obviously he's told you that I was involved in the same accident. I also have a right BKA. I broke my left hip, and I have an artificial hip, and also broke 2 vertebrae in my back during the accident. And luckily, I fully recovered from the back injury and artificial hip, but that'll always be there. But it's one of those things, and I was 38 when the accident occurred. I'm 40 now.
There is life after amputation.
You know, I think it's very clear that all of us who have went through this, there was a period of time where we figured that it was pretty much over. You know, our life just wasn't going to be any good anymore. We wasn't going to make it through this and whatever. And that's what's so important, to try for those of us that have made it work, to try and help others to show that it can work.
You go through a lot of stages. I know I did. I mean, I went through a lot of stages. I went through anger, feel guilty, you know, guilt.
Like, why did it happen to you? Or
Yeah,
those
and then,
kind of
you know,
things?
pity party, and then I decided
Yeah.
that, you know, it could have been a lot worse, so I got myself out of that pretty quickly, and then sad, and then, you know, frustrated, but you get through it, you
Yeah.
know, depressed, but you get through it, you know. A little more each day, and you feel you can accomplish more. And just
That's
doing it.
good.
Well, one of the ways I try to explain it to people is, a lot of people have an illness or they have something wrong with them, they come to the hospital to get fixed. And hopefully they're gonna go home fixed. But for those of us that are amputees, we come to the hospital and we're gonna get a part removed. And it opens up a whole bunch of new problems to us. So we're actually leaving the hospital with new problems. Problems that we didn't have when we came in. And that's what makes this so much different. That's why meeting with people, talking with people, being involved in a support group is so important. Because we're going home with more problems than we came in with. That's the way I see it. When it came time to make the decision to have my leg amputated, it was a very depressing time, mainly because I had no experience. I had never known anybody who had their leg amputated. And the thought of an amputation brought up more questions than answers. And so I went through quite a bit of depression until after the amputation.
It was like an out-of-body experience to me, being told you're going to lose a leg, because a lot of emphasis is put on your body parts. You know, when somebody tells you you're going to lose a body part that's not going to come back, and that word phantom, you know, which blew my mind. You're going to lose the foot, but then you may have phantom sensations or phantom pain. It wasn't clicking.
Actually, I woke up with an amputation. I didn't have a choice. I kind of figured out something was seriously wrong with my leg at the scene of the accident. I never went unconscious, so I remember all the goings on, and I just remember a lot of what was said and how I felt, and kind of figured out something was seriously wrong, because I also had a double compound fracture of the femur, and I saw that injury, so I kind of figured out at that point that my leg was pretty severely injured. And the next 4 days are pretty foggy. They had us in ICU, and I don't remember a whole lot, but I remember waking up and just being flat. I wasn't allowed to get up because I wasn't cleared yet for the spinal injury, and seeing that my leg was gone and just thinking, oh, well, they took it below the knee instead of above, and I don't think it really hit me because I was still very foggy. I was on a lot of medication, so as I woke up further, it kind of hit me. It was shocking.
I was hurting so bad from that gangrene from my first leg that I just wanted anything. And when they said, your leg's gotta go, I didn't feel anything about that. Only thing was, they told me it was gonna be below the knee. I went to sleep and woke up and it was above the knee. And so the doctor told me the reason why it was above the knee, because he didn't want to continue operating on me and bringing it up, you know, cutting it up and up and up.
The feeling was really a depression for about a week. I realized the fact I was on my crutches. I was walking around. I couldn't drive. I couldn't. And this was after 2 years of crutch time. That and finally, infection was so bad, and the feeling that I had was really depression of but it didn't last long.
Well, I was very apprehensive. It really bothered me quite a lot. I didn't know where I was going to go from there. Fortunately, I had moved from my house. I knew I wouldn't ever go back there. I couldn't handle that. And of course, the doctors and nurses were very cooperative and very helpful.
Similar to Wendy's scenario, I was kind of drugged up myself, so life wasn't as clear then for a lot of reasons. But eventually there came a point where one of the doctors came in and talked with me about the possible scenario, the future, how it would look if I decided to keep my leg, or they told me the possible prospects if I decided to go ahead with the amputation. It didn't sound good when they proposed that if I kept my leg, they couldn't guarantee that I'd really have good use of it. There could be a lot of ongoing problems because of the significance of the damage that was done as a result of the accident. So I think I thought about it for about a day or so, and I didn't have long to think about it before I decided that it might be in my best interest to try life with a prosthetic.
And you know the strange thing about it is that I had bought about 3 pair of new high heels before my car accident that were still in the boxes. So I'm thinking that as I'm in the hospital, boy, I can't wait to put on my high heels. And I ended up giving them away after I had my surgery. And that's probably when reality set in, that, you know, you have got to adjust to the fact that you're still alive and you just do not have a foot.
For those of us that make the pure visitations, we have to be very careful not to try and build a person up too much, because
Right.
everybody is different. Everybody has a different set of problems. And I know I try to stress that there are limitations. You know, not every day is the same. There's days I can walk quite a ways, and then there's days I can't. So that's one of those down days, and you just say, okay, well, today I'm not going to walk too far. I'm going to do something else.
Right.
Just the way it works.
Well, I think just having you stop in at the hospital, that helps a lot.
Well, with that's our plan.
Yeah,
That's our plan,
yeah.
because we're hopefully going to show you that there's a little light at the end of the tunnel. And no, I think it works. I really do.
What were you going to say?
Larry is the one that impressed me. The first night he come to the hospital and showed me how to put his leg on and off and everything. He was the first amputee I ever talked to.
So you got some education and
Yeah.
some, like,
Right.
this
And,
is what it's all about.
Sure
Isn't it,
impressed
almost
me
all
right
of us
there.
are like that for some reason. I had never seen anybody that was an amputee before.
We sat out in the hallway because there was a storm that night.
Oh,
Yeah.
is it- you're all in the hallway.
Yeah, we had to move our little session out in the middle of the hallway with everybody. Due to my work at the police department, I'm a very personal type person. And Marie and Becky, after I got on my feet and was walking with my prosthetic, asked me if I would be interested in visiting new patients. And I thought, gee whiz, I remembered back the time that the gentleman came to see me, and I said, boy, when I get on my feet, I want to be able to do that, to help other people.
Talking to Larry was probably the biggest help that anybody could have said. When talking to the doctors, it was, well, we can do this and we can do that. But if you really want to, under their breath, kind of, it was, if you really want to get your life back together, you should consider an amputation. And coming from somebody with 2 legs, and yeah, that's really fine, but you really don't appreciate it till you talk to somebody that has one and can explain their lifestyle, how it's gotten back for them, and it could get back for myself.
The most encouraging was when Larry came and saw me in the hospital and showed me his leg and how well he was doing. Not that I've anywhere caught up to him, but it was very encouraging, very helpful.
I don't know if I ever told him this, but when he left my house, I peeked out of the window just to make sure that he was walking with a prosthetic leg, you know, because he was just so up, you know. And once I talked to him, it's like my emotions elevated up. You know, when you talk to somebody and they show you that, yeah, I know what you're going through. I've been there, but this is what you can do. I know you can do it because I did it.
After a little soul searching and talking to one of the members at the club here, and really realizing that the loss of the leg really isn't going to be that bad, I went ahead and through talking with Larry, made it really clear to me that I could get back to a life that I once had.
I look at the amputation as almost like a gift because I've enjoyed so much when the nurses call and say they have a new person and I go up there to the hospital to see them. It's a joy for me, and hopefully, and it always has, worked out real well for those people. I answer all their questions to the best of my ability, just give them some hope, which is exactly what happened to me. And I've enjoyed it. I've done it for over 3 years now, and I hope to be doing this for quite a few years.
It's tough to keep going and have that good attitude every single day.
Yeah.
And
Well, I think this support group has been as good for me as it has been for John. I enjoy the people, and it's just like meeting a whole group of new friends. Enjoy it very much.
and it's okay to have a down day.
That's what I wanted to say too.
Yeah.
I think when this happened to Jim, he was depressed, I was depressed, and I was trying to recover from heart attack and concerned about my inability to help him.
Yeah.
And thinking my dad was an amputee, and when that happened to him, he never got out of the wheelchair. Not realizing that he chose to actually. He didn't try.
Yeah.
But he was also older, but he still could. And I thought the same thing was going to happen to Jim. The support group was actually the best thing. I look forward to it every week after the first time because I started understanding things and seeing things in a totally different light, and I saw what it was doing for him. A lot of times I think maybe I got more out of it than he did. You know, it's a big thing, and you do lose your temper with them.
See, that makes me feel good. I thought my wife was the only one that
Thanks, ladies. Appreciate that.
I think it's a guy thing, you know?
I think it is a little bit. Yeah. Well, spouses that are here and who've been through this with folks from day one, jump in.
We do get upset with some
my
things
bandage.
that you'd like to, they should be doing that they don't. Or you rather they wouldn't be doing that they do. He's a good one.
I haven't had that.
You have to tie him down.
We've tried to, whenever I go up to visit someone, I try to stress the issue of bringing family, because we really have realized that it's not just the amputee that's going through this, it's the whole family. We're talking about wives, kids, and parents, and we welcome anybody to come to these groups so that they can also see other people that are in the same boat. And I think it helps. I had many people, family, my wife, my children, people I worked with, that were extremely supportive. I believe they had a lot of hope in me, and for the family and for my grandchildren, which I wanted to be very active with, and I wanted to be able to do a lot of things with my grandkids because of that family support, and their being right with me helped me get through this.
I had my sister and my grandchildren, and I had my nephew. I had family there, and then I had friends there.
My son and daughter-in-law live here in Ann Arbor, and they have been most helpful and have looked to all my needs and so forth. They've been very, very helpful.
Without question, it was my wife. She probably is the strongest person at outside. I think she put up a good front, but I think she was behind me 100%. Without her, it would have been tough. It really would have.
I have two very good friends who stood by me while I was in the hospital when I came home. So they were my major support system. And some of my coworkers, as a matter of fact, my coach was very supportive, came to visit. And I had a support team that worked with me, who came to clean my house and, you know, keep me stable, you know, take care of everything around. So I really had good people around me, you know. Some of them were paid people, but quite a few of them were not paid people. I also have my church, you know, who came to visit. My minister came to see me in the hospital. So there were people who provided me with prayer and encouragement, and I thank them.
The number of cards and well wishes from my friends, and most all of them would say, "I'm holding you in my prayers and wishing you luck," was very, very comforting and helped a great deal with my spirits, I believe.
And my mailman, he always knocks on the door and hands me the mail because it's hard for me to reach the mailbox. And also my paper boy knocks on the door. So everybody's helped me.
It's nice when your family comes to visit you in the hospital. That's when you need it.
Day.
And it's really helpful, especially initially. They were there for us when we got out of the hospital, back at home.
Oh, totally. And our family and friends were very supportive.
Right.
And
but you can't.
Of course, the support group, but you can't. I mean, I've
discount.
totally depended on you. I mean, you've kind of been my inspiration through the whole thing.
We've leaned on
He
each
has
other.
been, so.
We've leaned on each other.
I mean, I've learned from him a lot because he's been ahead of me most of the time, so he works out all the bugs for me and teaches me. But no, he's been a total inspiration because I see how well he's doing, so I can see that. I mean, it's kind of a weird situation with us because we're both in a very similar situation. I mean, I look at him and it's like almost looking in the mirror, and so.
I'm that good looking.
I can, you know, understand kind of what he's going through because I know what I'm going through. Now, of course, it's not the same, but we can definitely relate to one another. I think this is just how I feel. But he's been my main inspiration, I'd say, because he's done so well. So, and that's been great too to see him do so well because it's very hard to see someone you love in pain.
I would say the first person, she would be the top of my list as far as inspiration, especially from, you know, definitely on an emotional level. She is just. I've seen her go through the difficult times, and I still see her go through some tough times every now and then. She's got one heck of a spirit, I'll tell you. So she gives me inspiration.
I think we've helped each other. You know, we work off each other.
And that's something that has struck both Wendy and I is the fact that we've got each other. Because considering the alternative, you know, we kind of wonder what life would be like. We have a pretty good idea what life would be like without the other person. She wouldn't want to live with me without me, and I'm sure that I feel the same.
Right.
You know, the thing I try to stress with people when I go up to see them at the hospital is to try and set some small goals. Large goals, you know, they'll come, but you need the small goals. You got to have something to work towards to try and make things work, which I think is very, very important. You have to set those goals, something to work towards.
And just coming here is a goal.
You know, it is. It really is.
When you got to that kind of feeling helpless point, what were the things that helped you get through
Well, you
that?
sit down and you analyze your life. You say to yourself, you know, well, this is my age, I've got this I want to accomplish yet, and work towards that. Work towards accomplishing what you, again, like I say, these are goals. You have to set goals for yourself. You have to say, this is where I want to be in 6 months, and that gives you something to work towards. Or I seen this guy, he's an amputee and he's doing this. That's what I want to do. So that's the goal you work towards. If you don't have any goals, you just kind of sit vacant and not do anything, which is not good. And again, that's where our support group comes in. You know, hopefully we can give people some goals to work towards. Not everybody's going to be able to achieve the goals that maybe you have. But is everybody going to be able to achieve a life that's worth living, something that you can do? Yes, I think that's very important, yes.
If you need to walk, start with a store like Myers.
Okay.
And then I get a good basket that all the wheels work on, see? And I walk through Myers.
Okay.
And I have entertainment watching people, looking at stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm getting my exercise.
And I know Gene sits there just as quiet as can be.
Give me for my birthday.
But
and
this
my
guy, after
Mother's
1
Day.
year, about 1 year after his amputation, he is
I
the
was feeling a
senior
little bit hesitant.
archery champion, Olympic, what was it?
Should be there.
Senior Olympics. He joined the Senior
Right.
Olympics, and he is the archery champion in Senior
Oh,
Olympics.
that's
And
amazing.
that's quite an accomplishment. It really is. And we're talking just about 1 year after your
That's
No,
amazing.
no, it's-
It was sooner than that.
4 months.
4 months?
Wow.
The goals, I probably, I wanted to get back to shooting archery. That was a big goal. And getting back to a fairly normal existence with the wife and family. And I really think that trying to make everybody's life around me more comfortable, because it seems to, when you do have an amputation, everybody is kind of tentative about how they talk to you and the way they act around you, but it's a learning experience for me and my friends. And the better I do at it, I think the better they will too.
Some of the goals that I have set for myself, I found after the amputation I set small goals that to achieve, and the walking process and getting used to the prosthetics. And I achieved those goals one at a time. Then I started making bigger goals. I wanted to ride motorcycle again, and I found I could do that. Driving a car, I kind of had to learn how to drive a car again because my right leg was amputated, and that's one that for the gas and the brake, but I was patient enough to learn how to do it. I got back to work at the police department, which I wanted to do very badly. So there was just a lot of goals that I set for myself, and I'm happy to say that I've accomplished every single one of them.
I've done a lot of things for myself, like you say. I wash my own dishes. I mop my floor. I vacuum my floor. And I change my bed. I wash my clothes. And I have a reacher in each room each room I have a reacher, so that if there's anything that I can't reach, I've got something right there to reach, whether it's up high or low.
I wanted to dance at my granddaughter's wedding after I got my prosthesis, and I did. And with my son, I must say I didn't do any jitterbugging or any fancy dance, but I swayed to the music and danced a little bit. It was great. And I think my family was very proud of me.
One of my goals is to try riding my motorcycle again. I have to do it at least once just to see if I can do it. I don't feel strong enough yet, but I'd like to at least attempt it. And I'd like to run someday. I'd like to be able to run someday so that I can play tennis again and things like that. I've already tried, hiking, canoeing. The hiking, depending on the terrain, is still a struggle, so I'd like to be able to do that without assistance. I usually have someone helping me. I'll have a cane with me, or Dave helps me all the time through a lot of areas, any kind of incline or anything. I usually need help with that. So he helps me with a lot of things, but I'd like to be able to someday be all totally independent.
She's pretty
So
independent.
I'm independent now, but I want to be completely independent, even though I appreciate the help.
I know.
I just want to be totally independent, so that's a goal, I guess.
Before, I used to work on goals like walking a mile or a mile and a half, and then I started setting goals like if I could walk a block or 2 blocks or 3 blocks. And the other day, where I live now, our mailboxes are maybe about 3 blocks. It seemed like 3 miles sometimes. But I used to get in my car and drive around to the mail and then, drive back. And the other day, I took Prince and put him on the leash, and we walked around and got the mail, which was a bad mistake because I had a lot of magazines. So if I had taken a plastic bag with me with a handle, it would have been much easier. So my goal is to eventually walk up to a mile. And I'll do it. Yeah, I'll do it.
I can do a lot for myself. I really haven't gotten back into running yet, but not that I was a big runner to begin with, but it's something that I'd like to be able to do again. I can do it right now, but I feel really clumsy. I'd like to get back into playing tennis again, if possible. I think that's a possibility, I really do. Just got to get off my butt, and like they keep telling you in the hospital, you got to exercise.
So important.
It's very important, and just a matter of striving towards it. And I've got a private pilot license that I have not been able to exercise since the accident, and I hope that I'll be able to do that, hopefully within the next year.
What are you like to? What were some of your hobbies before, Mr. Van Andren? What would you like to get back to doing?
Well, I used to go out in the shop and do woodwork and stuff, but I just had very poor balance because I had my back operated on, and so now I have to hang on to things. Used to be when I had both my legs, I could walk real good, but when I stopped, I'd have to shuffle my feet or hang on to something. And now with this, it makes it even more difficult.
But I think you could still do something.
Could get that down to a chair level. That's what a lot of folks do to modify, like in their homes and things, is to get those things down to this where you can do things at a seated level instead of a standing level. And some of your things you may not be able to without standing, but
he
that's
does the
an idea.
dishes and stands at the same. That's probably the bench in the garage is probably about the same height. And he could just lean next to that.
Well, I figure if you can do dishes, you can do just about anything.
I think so.
Probably build a house.
Come over and do my dishes.
The greatest challenge is, I think everything has been real good, but so far is getting up and dancing with my wife. I think that's still a hard thing that I really, we go to these parties and weddings, and my heart says get up and dance, but I'm afraid to kind of get up there and start walking all over her feet. But that's, everything else seems really, really minor. But to me, that is something that I still really haven't gotten comfortable with yet. And I think as time goes by and I get more used to my prosthetic, the knowing the comfort zone, I think it'll be there.
One of the biggest challenges that I had was believing that I could do anything that I wanted to do. I was a very active person before the amputation, and I was very afraid that my activity level would drop a lot because of the amputation. So little by little, as I progressed along, I found that there was absolutely nothing I can't do. I ride motorcycle, I work at the police department, and I've accomplished everything that I've wanted to accomplish. So it's made me very happy. And I also am working with other amputee people, which brings me a lot of pleasure if I can help someone else that's going through what I went through.
I guess my greatest challenge probably was to walk again, just with the left hip injury and the back injury and the amputation, because they're all kind of tied in together. And I still don't walk without a limp totally yet, just because everything's connected. So I'd say that was probably my biggest hurdle.
There was a lot of adjustment of learning to go up and down the stairs. And because it was where I lived, lots of the time I would sit on the stairs and just what I call booty bump up the stairs and booty bump down the stairs, you know. So that was a major adjustment. But you learn how to do what you have to do in order to survive.
I think the toughest thing for me was getting over the emotional impact of the accident. And I was able to make a significant stride in that regard at one point by seeing someone else who had been, who is an amputee, just like myself, also a motorcyclist. And he's a member of our amputee support group and had his amputation I think a couple of years at least prior to our amputation.
He was 2 years before.
And so the first time I met Larry was at one of our amputee support, I think it was the very first amputee support group meeting that we both attended. And I didn't know who he was because he looked like a normal person to me. And when I saw him standing there and just acting normally and being able to do seemingly normal things, it was a surprise to see that, and it was an eye-opener. And I got a chance to talk to him, and like within seconds, seemingly within seconds, he had his leg off at my request. You know, I was asking him questions. He had no problem taking his leg off and showing me what he had gone through and exactly what his equipment looked like, and told me that he was back riding. And so that, for me, that was kind of an emotional epiphany, so to speak. Realizing that there's life after amputation, and I could get back to. I felt that I definitely had good odds of getting back to doing motorcycling and maybe even a lot more of what I used to be able to do.
The real story that I could relate is the one that I might have mentioned before, with coming to the club one evening and seeing I was still on my crutches and coming to a meeting, and here comes this fellow walking into the building that I've seen before with a shorts on and his prosthetic leg. To me, that was probably the most inspiring thing I saw. And it, you just can't, I thought to myself, boy, I almost wish I had one of those. I get rid of this, and I was almost hoping that I could have an artificial limb. It sounds silly, but there was, I know the road I was traveling with the way I was at that time, and I didn't think I would ever be any better. And I kind of, in my back of my mind, I saw that, and it really made me feel good.
I had something that inspired me when I was still in the hospital. There was a amputee, double amputee, a quad, I don't even know how to phrase this. She was early 20s maybe, 20 years old. She had both her legs amputated and her arms. And she wasn't even supposed to live. It was due to some type of disease that she had, and they saved her by doing that. And she was an outpatient at that time and was like walking, and I was just amazed. And she came over and showed me. But she had such a positive attitude. That's what got me. She was just so upbeat and was talking how, oh, I want to get the hand, and, instead of the claw. And she was just totally upbeat about it.
One of the stories that inspired me the most through this whole ordeal, the day before my amputation, I was up at the hospital. I was a basket case. I was crying all day, very upset, very scared. And one of the nurses at the hospital found a man who was an amputee and had him come and visit me. That was a turning point in my life. That gentleman answered all my questions that I had about amputation, showed me how his artificial leg worked, and when he left, I firmly had the belief that if he could do it, I could do it.
Have you been in any trips lately?
Went on a cruise in March.
All right.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
Where'd you go?
In the Eastern Caribbean.
Oh, nice.
Ooh.
And you should have seen me. I went with my daughter-in-law and my daughter and a friend of mine, and they decided we would go on a sailboat. Oh, this is great. Go on a sailboat. But you had to get off the pier and onto a rubber raft. You know how steady those are?
Oh, yeah.
How would
Okay. I got on with a lot of help. Then we got to the sailboat, and there were just some slats.
Oh.
4 slats to get up to into the sailboat. Well, I had a lot of help, and they were all very nice. Nobody laughed, and I'm glad nobody had a video camera. They got me up on there, and I went. I didn't go snorkeling with my daughter.
Drew the line there, huh?
I didn't have the right kind of a prosthesis. I wouldn't have gone anyway. I can travel. I've done a lot of plane trips. I've been to Maine, I've been to Texas, I've been to Colorado, been out to Spokane, Washington. I'd say it hasn't slowed me down as far as traveling and so forth. And one of the interesting things here, we have what they call, and I don't know if you noticed, that we all got sunrise bucks for going to exercise. The exercise class we have 3 days a week, but I think it's helped a lot to keep my upper part of my body and my other leg in condition so that I can walk and get around. And we have a Red Hat Society for the women over 60, over 55. We have our red hats and purple dresses, and I belong to that. We made our own hats. It's a lot of fun.
I am finding myself shooting my archery and going hunting. I hunted last year for the first time in 3 years. And maybe this year I'm going to get back in my tree stand and do some more deer hunting with the bow and arrow. I plan on doing some extensive traveling maybe again this year. We've put that on hold for the last 3 years. My wife has been very sympathetic and understanding about my problems, and finally I think this year we're going to start getting back on the airplane and going places that we were going before.
My hobbies are decorating and gardening. I like gardening. I don't have a lot of space for gardening because I live in a condominium, but I do have room for flowers, and I decorated my deck. I also designed my deck and the sidings around it. I do have 2 Yorkies that are just wonderful. They were with me when I had my surgery. I mean, not in the hospital, but when I came home. Very loving, very caring, you know, like somebody who had unconditional love, which you would want from any loved ones.
I'm back to riding motorcycles, although some people might look at me with a jaundiced eye when I say that. But it's been a large part of both of our lifestyles in the past.
Big part.
And for that reason, I'm back on the bike, and
I've pretty much gotten my life back to normal, working full time again, doing the hobbies, able to canoe, able to ride on the back of a motorcycle again.
we take more trips these days, see more sights.
My flowers, I plant them on my ramp. I do my own planting, but I have somebody go get my flower plants for me. And also, I have a raised garden in the back where I plant my vegetables. But I have people bring plants to me, but I take care of them. I water them and all that. And I read the Bible a lot.
One of my worries when I became an amputee was my hobbies are a big thing in my life. I did not want to give up riding a motorcycle, but there was a lot of questions whether I'd be able to operate one with an artificial leg. I do a lot of hunting and fishing and being out in the woods, how an artificial leg would work, walking in the woods on uneven territory. And one of the most important things is I've been a reserve police officer for the city of Saline where I live. And I thought for sure when I got my amputation that my career as a police officer was over. The chief visited me at the hospital and informed me that I would be the one making the decision. He says, give yourself some time, and when you get your artificial leg, if you feel that you can still handle the job, that I was welcome to stay on the force. I found that I am able to handle the job. I do not work the desk. I am out on patrol. They have now made me a sergeant, and at present time I've got 31 years in as a reserve police officer with the city of Saline.
I think the other thing people are fearful about support groups is that they'll have to talk in front of a bunch of strangers, or that the group will be very depressing and people are very down and very depressed, and if they come and are surprised that it's, you know, it's a riot here sometimes. I mean, everybody knows Larry and is joking about Larry, or...
I'll tell you a little comical story that I still laugh about today. The day I went home from the hospital, all the time I was up there in the hospital, all I had was sponge baths. And when I got home, I told the wife, I have to take a shower. So, lo and behold, you know, I went into the bathroom, I sat on the toilet, I got disrobed, and all of a sudden a light came on in my head. How am I going to take a shower? You know, with one leg. And I started laughing so hard I couldn't believe it. Well, that wasn't the end of the story. I finally remembered I need a shower stool. So I told Kathy. Kathy runs over to Myers. I'm sitting in the bathroom waiting, almost naked. She runs over to Myers, gets a shower stool. Of course, it comes in a box. So I says, well, go out in the garage, get me some tools. So here I am sitting there in the toilet, naked, putting my shower stool together so I could take a shower. Now, it helped a lot. At that time, I found that totally amusing, and I just laughed, and I'm still laughing about it today.
I believe that the support group at St. Joseph's Hospital in Ann Arbor, Ypsi, is the best because the 2 nurses who run it are volunteers. We have people from other hospitals who've had amputations other places who are part of our support groups. We have guest speakers come in. And I don't mean people who are always in the medical field, because we've had some people come in and show massages and give the benefits of it. You know, of course, there are a lot of prosthetists who come and talk, and it's geared toward that, to give a lot of information.
Hi, I'm Dennis Oler. We're going to be presenting for you. I'm a below-the-knee amputee back in '84 from a car accident, 3 weeks before signing a contract to play professional soccer. Been the best thing that ever happened in my life. Had I signed that contract, my professional soccer career would have lasted only 1 year. In 1988, after coming back from Seoul, Korea, both Todd and I are ex-Paralympic athletes. We were the fastest leg amputee sprinters in the world. Todd is an above-the-knee amputee, me is a below-the-knee amputee. In 1988 in Seoul, we both qualified to go to the Paralympics and competed in Seoul, Korea, and I ran 100 meters in 11.7 seconds. For anybody that doesn't know track and field, that is flying down a track. That's really flying down a track. To put it into perspective, if you were to take Carl Lewis, everybody remember Carl Lewis during the Olympic Games, the fastest human being on the face of the earth? That same year, in lane 4, 2 weeks before we came in, Carl set a new world record for able-bodied athletes. The difference between my time that I ran 2 weeks later and Carl Lewis, if you look at that clock right there, see that second hand? This is the difference between Carl Lewis and myself when he gets to the 9. You ready? Carl Lewis, me. And I did that on an artificial leg. After that, I wound up signing a contract, and I had a professional sprinting career for a decade, where I was a professional athlete, sprinter, for over 10 years. The best part of what we've done has not been being a professional athlete. It's changing other people's lives.
You know, my life and Dennis's life began the same exact way, you know, and getting involved in doing this. When I was 15 years old, and I was diagnosed with bone cancer in my left leg, immediately they knew they had to do the amputation to save my life, and they wound up doing that within a couple of weeks of that original diagnosis. And eventually I became the fastest above-the-knee amputee in the world. My 100-meter time, my fastest time was 14.2 seconds. You know, I was able to run up on a treadmill over 16 miles per hour on the treadmill.
I could go at least 18.
But I got a cooler leg. It's all about the leg, baby.
My name is Steve Hoover. I'm a prosthetist for Wright and Philippus here in town. And I am also an amputee, 32 years out now for me. So both as a BK and now as an above the knee. So I've had both experiences. And I'm here tonight just to talk to you guys about prosthetics.
We were living in Buffalo, New York when I first met Footsie, and a gentleman found him. He was about 8 months old, and he had no hind feet. So he rescued the dog. He took the dog and he gave him to a lady who said she would take care of him, and she did for about 2 months. And then she moved out of her apartment. She just left the dog. And when the landlord went in, here was this dog, about half dead, literally half dead. And actually, they were going to euthanize the dog because he was in such bad shape. But he had such a face, and he had such a sweet personality. And the vet at that Humane Society said, I know a gentleman that makes prosthetics. Maybe he can do something for the dog. So it was an experiment because there's no book on how to make prosthetics for dogs, right? And so he made Footsie some prosthetic feet. And they worked. They allowed him to get around. They allowed him to get around. So Steve and Wright and Phillips came up with this design, and here's Footsie.
The Amputee Support Group is, in my mind, an excellent tool in rehabilitation.
And I found the support group has been very, very good. When you don't know anybody that's had an amputation and then all of a sudden you're in that situation, it's pretty scary.
The support group is it's such a uplifting feeling is when you get to that, get in there with the room and you're talking to these people that that have these above the knee and double amputees, and they're still getting around and making a life for themselves. And myself, with just the below the knee, is I feel like I'm shirking my duty by not trying to do as much as I can after listening to some of the people there, and just listening to their problems and seeing that my little problems are hardly anything compared to theirs, and they're still getting around and making a life, which is what it's all about, is trying to get the most out of your days that we have here.
I think it's important because everybody in there is going through the same thing. It may not be to the same extent, but we all have had a part of our limbs removed surgically. If not initially because of an infection or something, maybe due to an accident, but we have the other people to look around and says, hey, I'm not in this alone. And that's what a support group is all about.
Support group's been an amazing thing for me. I mean, I remember when I first went, I didn't have my leg yet. So I was still in my brace, still in a wheelchair. And just to see the other people who were in the same similar situation, different situations, but similar in the fact that they had an amputation and how they'd moved on and how they were dealing with it, and to see that there's other people out there that know what you're going through, so to speak, and they can relate to you, and just that there was other people, and it kind of is really helpful, and I really enjoy it. And of course, you're making new friends and meeting new people, and I love to do that anyways. And I also like being able to help other people because I know what I've gone through now, and now if I can help anybody, I want to, because this is, you know, it's a rough thing to go through. It's not, and there's not a lot of us out there.
We are very fortunate at our hospital that we have such a support group. There's a lot of hospitals around that do not have support groups for amputees. So if you're in a hospital that does not have a support group, I would ask the doctors and stuff to do a search, because our hospital and our support group accepts people from everywhere. Anyone that wants to come to our support group meetings is welcome, from any hospital. We send out flyers to other hospitals notifying them of our support group, and we do get people from other hospitals.
I can tell you, knowing a little bit more about the state of Michigan, just because my company is all over, there are not too many support groups in the state of Michigan. And we have people here from West Branch that can probably attest to that. They're few and far between, so I think it's great that this facility is doing it, that these people are willing to run it, and that you guys have this resource to tie into, you know, so that you can get the information and share with each other your experiences, and mine too for that matter. Because it's one of those things, a lot of times we often do feel alone, and I know there's days, like I said, I've been 32 years an amputee, and there's still days I get up and go, man, I got to put that on again. When is it going to end? You know, we all have our days and our moments, you know, and it is the way that it is. But it's great that we can get together like this and talk about it and realize that all of us probably have those exact same days. And then there's other days where we're raring to go. Let's go do it.
I don't know if I would be where I am today if it wasn't for the support group. It has been tremendous. That's why I like going to the hospital, talking to people who are either anticipating an amputation or have just recently had an amputation, is to show them, you know, I know what you're going through, but I also will repeat what I've said, there is life after amputation.